I built my life on the principle of logistics, moving something from point A to point B without it getting stolen, broken, or lost. For 40 years, I ran a freight empire that spanned 3 continents. I moved steel through the Rust Belt, electronics through the Pacific, and medical supplies through war zones. I sat across the table from union leaders who threatened to break my legs, and I negotiated with corporate sharks who wanted to strip my company for parts. I never blinked. I never folded. I thought I knew what a predator looked like. I thought I could spot the hunger in a man's eyes from a mile away. I was wrong. The most dangerous predators weren't the ones in the boardrooms or the back alleys of shipping ports. They were the ones I tucked into bed every night for 18 years. They were the ones whose tuition I paid, whose cars I bought, whose mistakes I buried under layers of money and influence. My son, Marcus, and my daughter, Elena. I used to think they were just spoiled. I used to tell myself that their entitlement was my fault, a side effect of giving them the life I never had. But last week, the blindfold was ripped off, and I saw them for what they truly are. They aren't waiting for me to die. They are actively tapping their feet, checking their Rolexes, and sighing at the inconvenience of my continued existence. The realization didn't come in a dramatic explosion. It didn't happen in a courtroom or a shouting match. It came in a whisper. Last Tuesday, I was sitting in my study reviewing the quarterly reports when the world tilted sideways. It started as a numbness in my left hand, then a slur in my speech, and finally a darkness that swallowed the room. It was a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke. It wasn't fatal, but it was terrifying. It left me temporarily paralyzed on my left side and unable to speak, my tongue feeling like a heavy, useless piece of leather in my mouth. They rushed me to St. Jude's. The doctor stabilized me, hooked me up to monitors that beeped in a rhythmic, hypnotic cadence. They told my children that I was stable, but that my cognitive function was hard to assess in the immediate aftermath. I lay there in the private hospital suite, staring at the sterile white acoustic tiles of the ceiling. My eyes were open, but my body wouldn't obey my commands. I couldn't lift my hand. I couldn't form words. To the outside world, I looked like a husk, a man whose mind had checked out, leaving the body behind to wither. But my hearing was perfect. In fact, in the absence of my other faculties, it seemed sharper, more acute. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner. I could hear the squeak of nurses' shoes in the hallway. And I could hear Marcus and Elena standing at the foot of my bed. They thought I was gone. They thought I was just a breathing corpse. Elena asked. Her voice wasn't trembling with grief. It was tight with annoyance. I couldn't see her, but I knew she was checking her phone. I have the closing on the Tuscany property next week. He's not in limbo, Elle, Marcus replied. I heard the rustle of a wrapper. He was eating a protein bar. He's checking out. Look at him. Sluggish isn't dead, Marcus, she snapped. If he lingers like this, the medical bills alone will eat into the liquid assets. Do you know what this suite costs? $5 grand a night, plus the specialists. If he stays like this for 6 months, that's $1 million gone. Don't worry, Marcus laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound that chilled me more than the stroke ever could. I spoke to Dr. Evans. I told him Dad wouldn't want to live like this, no quality of life. If he has another turn, we just don't intervene. We let nature take its course. I lay there, trapped in my own body, staring at a water stain on the ceiling tiles that looked like a map of a country I would never visit. I listened to my children, the boy I taught to fish, the girl I danced with at her debutante ball, calculate the return on investment of my death. It broke something inside me that I didn't know was still whole. It wasn't my heart. It was my hope. If you have ever realized that the people you would take a bullet for are the ones holding the gun, hit that subscribe button. I want you to witness how a vegetable planted a trap that would bring the whole house down. I regained my speech 3 days later. The paralysis in my hand faded to a slight tremor. The doctors were amazed at my resilience. They called it a miracle. But I kept it a secret. When the nurse came in, I squeezed her hand to let her know I was there, but I put a finger to my lips. She understood. She saw the way my children looked at me. She saw the lack of flowers, the lack of tears. She became my co-conspirator. To Marcus and Elena, I played the part. I let my jaw hang slack. I mumbled incoherent sounds. I stared blankly at the wall while they sat in the room, discussing the sale of my vintage car collection and which of my properties would fetch the highest cash price in a quick sale. I needed time. I needed a plan. And most importantly, I needed a lawyer who wasn't on their payroll. My personal attorney, Henderson, was a good man, loyal to the bone. But he was 75 and currently recovering from a double hip replacement in Florida. He was out of the game. I couldn't use the firm's junior partners. Marcus went to Yale with half of them. If I made a move legally, they would know within the hour. I needed someone they didn't know. Someone who could walk into the lion's den and not flinch. Someone who could lie better than they could. I didn't need a litigator. I needed a thespian. I remembered an old contact from the Arts Council I used to donate to, back when Martha was still alive, and tried to make us cultured. I made a call on a burner phone the nurse bought for me. His name is Sebastian. I invited him to the house 2 days after I was discharged. I sent Marcus and Elena away on a wild goose chase. I had the nurse tell them there was a specialist in Geneva who might help, just to get them out of the house for the afternoon. Sebastian arrived in a beat-up Honda Civic that shuddered when he killed the engine. He walked into my study looking like a man who had seen better decades. He was about 60, with a shock of silver hair and a face lined with the kind of character you can't buy with plastic surgery. He had played kings, beggars, and villains on the West End stage 30 years ago, but today he was driving an Uber to pay his rent. He stood in front of my desk, holding a flat cap in his hands, looking around at the mahogany shelves and the leather-bound books with a mix of awe and resentment. "Mr. Silas," he said, his voice rich and deep, a trained instrument. "I was told you had a job. I assumed, perhaps moving furniture?" I was sitting in my wheelchair, the blanket over my legs. I let the mask drop. I sat up straight, the dazed invalid vanishing instantly. "I don't need a driver, Sebastian," I said, my voice steady. He blinked, surprised by the clarity of my tone. I am unwell," I said. "I am sick to death of my children." I motioned to the chair opposite me. He sat. I pushed a yellow legal pad across the desk. It was covered in my handwriting, scrawled, angry but legible. "I am offering you a role," I said. "One night only, improv required." Sebastian's eyes widened. He looked at the check I had already written, resting under a paperweight. 10,000 for one night? Is it? "Not in the eyes of the law," I said, "but morally, it's gray. Mr. Sterling is a high-end forensic accountant and attorney from New York. He is ruthless. He is cold." Sebastian picked up the legal pad. He put on a pair of wire-rimmed reading glasses he pulled from his jacket pocket. He read the first page, then the second. His expression shifted from confusion to shock. He looked up at me, then over at the mantel where a framed photo of Marcus and Elena smiled beautifully in their tennis whites. He asked, his voice hushed. "I want you to tell them worse," I said, leaning forward, the fire in my chest burning hot. "I want you to tell them that the empire is a house of cards. I want you to tell them that the logistics company has been hemorrhaging money for 5 years, that the offshore accounts were seized." I took a breath, stabilizing my voice. "I want you to tell them that the inheritance isn't a fortune, Sebastian. It's a liability." Sebastian looked at the script again. This is cruel, Mr. Silas." "Because I need to see their faces," I whispered. "I need to know with absolute certainty that there is no love left, only greed. If they stand by me, If they hear that I am ruined and they say, "It's okay, Dad, we'll figure it out," then I will tear this script up. I paused, looking at the empty eyes of my children in the photograph. But if they turn... I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't have to. Sebastian stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the sprawling lawn of my estate. He stood there for a long moment, and I watched his posture change. His shoulders squared, his spine straightened. He tucked his chin in slightly. When he turned back to me, the tired Uber driver was gone. In his place stood a shark. He took off his glasses and cleaned them methodically with a handkerchief. He placed them back on his nose and looked at me over the rims. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Mr. Silas," he said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming gravelly and authoritative. The accent shifted, sharpening into a clipped, mid-Atlantic cadence. "It appears we have a significant discrepancy in the ledger." He was perfect. He was terrifying. "You're hired, Mr. Sterling," I said. "Charcoal suit," I said. "Three-piece, silk tie. I have it hanging in the guest room. It was mine from the days when I used to fire people for stealing paper clips." "A briefcase," I said. "Battered leather, filled with documents. I spent all night forging them. IRS letters, bank seizure notices, red ink." "The stage is set then," Sebastian said. "Tomorrow is Sunday dinner," I told him. "They are coming to carve up the turkey and my bank accounts." I looked at the clock. "But Mr. Sterling is coming too," I said. Sebastian nodded once, a sharp, professional jerk of the head. He took the script and the check. "I'll see you at 6 p.m., sir," he said. "I suggest you practice your trembling." "Don't worry about me," I said, my hand shaking slightly, though this time it wasn't an act. He left. I sat alone in the study, listening to the silence of the house. It was a big house, too big for one old man. But tomorrow, it was going to feel very small. I wheeled myself over to the safe. I spun the dial and opened it. Inside sat the real documents, the trust fund deeds, the stock certificates, the proof that I was worth more today than I had ever been. I looked at them one last time. Then I closed the safe and locked it. The audition was over. Tomorrow was opening night. And God help them if they forgot their lines. The roast beef is overcooked, dry and stringy. But I am the only one at the table who seems to notice. Or perhaps I am simply the only one who cares about quality anymore. Sunday dinner at the Sterling estate used to be a sacred tradition, a time for debate, for laughter, for the clinking of glasses and the sharing of dreams. Tonight, the air in the dining room is so thick with passive aggression that I feel like I am choking on it. The crystal chandelier above us, which Martha bought in Vienna 30 years ago, casts a cold, unforgiving light on the scene. I sit at the head of the table, a napkin tucked into my collar like a bib, Elena's doing. She placed it there with a pat on my cheek that felt more like a slap, a gesture of infantilization that made my blood boil. I play my part perfectly. I let my hands tremble as I lift my fork. I chew slowly, staring into the middle distance with a vacant, watery gaze, letting a small piece of potato fall from my lip. They don't even look at me. To them, I am a piece of furniture, a dying lamp that is flickering annoyingly in the corner. "I'm telling you, the market in Tuscany is bottoming out," Elena says, swirling her Pinot Noir. She ignores the food. She is too busy spending money she doesn't have yet. "If I don't move on the villa in Chianti by next month, I lose the escrow. It has a vineyard, Marcus." "You don't know the first thing about wine, Elle," Marcus scoffs, cutting into his beef with aggressive strokes. He is wearing a new watch. I recognized it immediately. A Rolex Daytona, steel and gold. It retails for $20,000. I saw the charge on the corporate American Express yesterday before I had the card frozen. He doesn't know it yet. Besides, why buy a vineyard when you can buy a yacht? I'm looking at a Sunseeker, 60-footer. When the dust settles, Elena says, glancing briefly at me, then away, as if looking at a stain on the rug. We need to be liquid. I handled it, Marcus says, talking around a mouthful of meat. I got the power of attorney drafted. Once he goes into the hospice, we start the liquidation. The cars first. I listen to them, my own flesh and blood. They are carving up my life's work before my body is even cold. They aren't mourning the father they are losing. They are celebrating the jackpot they are winning. It takes every ounce of discipline I possess not to stand up and flip the table. But I have to wait. The curtain is about to rise. At 7:15 p.m., right on cue, the heavy oak front door chimes. The sound echoes through the cavernous house. Marcus frowns, checking his new watch. Who the hell is that? No, she says, annoyed. Maybe it's the nurse? The maid, Maria, enters the dining room. She looks nervous. I told her only that a guest was coming, nothing more. Mr. Sterling is here, she announces. Marcus drops his fork. It clatters against the fine china. Sterling? Before he can answer, Sebastian walks in. He is magnificent. He is wearing my charcoal three-piece suit, tailored to perfection. He has slicked his silver hair back, and he is carrying a battered, thick leather briefcase that looks like it has been dragged through every courthouse in the Southern District. He walks with a heavy, purposeful stride, the kind of walk that says, I own this room. He doesn't smile. He doesn't offer a hand. He walks straight to the head of the table, standing right next to my wheelchair, and places the briefcase onto the mahogany surface with a heavy, ominous thud that silences the room instantly. What? Marcus demands, standing up halfway. We didn't schedule any meetings. Sebastian looks at him over the rim of his glasses. His eyes are cold, dead sharks swimming in blue water. I am Arthur Sterling, Sebastian says. His voice projects to the back of the room without being loud, a stage actor's trick. It commands absolute attention. I am your father's forensic accountant and lead counsel for the insolvency restructuring. And I am afraid Sunday dinner is canceled. Elena laughs, a sharp, nervous sound. What are you talking about? Was, Sebastian corrects her. He snaps the latches of the briefcase. Click, click. The sound is like a pistol cocking. He opens the lid. It is filled to the brim with documents. I spent 6 hours last night forging them. Red ink, overdue stamps, threatening letters on IRS letterhead, seizure notices from the Cayman Islands Banking Authority. Sebastian grabs a stack of them and slides them across the table. They fan out in front of Marcus and Elena like a deck of poisoned cards. The shell companies have collapsed, Sebastian lies, his voice smooth and terrifyingly calm. The offshore accounts in Panama were seized this morning by federal authorities. The logistics empire wasn't just losing money, Mr. Silas. It was hemorrhaging it. Marcus picks up a paper. It's a fake notice of default on the estate. His hands start to shake. This says the house is in foreclosure? He stammers. The house, the cars, the commercial holdings, Sebastian lists them off, ticking them on his fingers. All of it, leveraged to the hilt. The liquidity is gone. Elena stands up, knocking her chair back. Debt? That's impossible. Sebastian turns his gaze to her. He was leveraging debt to pay for your tuition, your vacations, your jewelry. He pauses for effect. He lets the silence stretch until it is screaming. The silence that follows is absolute. It is the silence of a bomb that has landed in the center of the table, ticking down the final second before detonation. I watch their faces.
I watch the arrogance drain away, replaced by a primal animalistic fear. Then the explosion happens. Elena screams. It isn't a scream of grief. It is a scream of rage. She picks up her wine glass and throws it at the wall. Red wine splashes across the silk wallpaper like arterial spray. She shrieks, turning on me. Her face is twisted, ugly, unrecognizable. "You lost it? You lost everything?" Marcus is standing now, his face purple, veins bulging in his neck. He looks at me with pure hatred. "You roars," slamming his fist onto the table. "You promised, you stupid, senile old man." Elena is hyperventilating, pacing the room. "30 million? I can't pay that. I don't have a job." "You selfish bastard," Marcus spits at me. "You should have died in the hospital. If you had just died last week, we could have cashed out the life insurance before the audit hit. You're useless." I sit there, taking it all in. I am recording every word on the phone tucked into the pocket of my cardigan. It hurts. God, it hurts more than the stroke ever did.
To hear your own children wish you dead, to hear them call you a failure, to see that their love was nothing more than a transaction that has just bounced, it tears a hole in my chest. But amidst the pain, there is something else. Clarity, liberation. The doubt is gone. I haven't been paranoid. I haven't been harsh. I have been right. They keep going. Marcus is checking his phone, likely looking for a lawyer to sue me. They don't ask if I'm okay. They don't ask where we will go. They don't offer to help. They just hate me. "Mr. Sterling," I say quietly. My voice is low, but in the chaotic room, it cuts through the noise. The tremor is gone. The slur is gone. Sebastian stops packing his briefcase. He looks at me. He nods imperceptibly. "Speak?" he asks respectfully. Marcus freezes. Elena stops pacing. They both turn to look at me. They are confused by the sudden steadiness of my voice, the way I'm sitting up in the wheelchair. "I think the performance is over," I say. I push the blanket off my lap. I place my hands on the arms of the wheelchair and push myself up. My legs are stiff, but they hold. I stand to my full height, 6 feet 2 inches of leverage and grit. I don't need my cane. I walk to the head of the table. I reach out and pick up the foreclosure notice that Sebastian had forged so brilliantly. I hold it up to the light. "Elena," whispers, her voice trembling. I rip the document in half, then in half again. I let the pieces flutter down onto the uneaten roast beef. "Mr. Sterling is an actor," I announce, my voice booming through the dining room, resonating off the walls I built. "His name is Sebastian. He drives an Uber." I gesture to the briefcase, the documents, the entire evening. I look at my children. They look paralyzed, caught between relief and terror. I pull out my phone. I tap the screen and stop the recording. "I am not broke," I say, my voice cold as the grave. "The logistics company is having its best quarter in a decade. The Panama accounts are flush. My assets are secure, diversified, and growing." The color drains from Marcus's face, leaving him ghostly pale. He realizes what he has said. He realizes what I have heard. Marcus?" he starts, holding out a hand, a sickly smile trying to form on his lips. "Wait, Dad, listen, we were just panicked. It was the shock. We didn't mean it." I repeat, "Wishing your father dead is a joke?" Elena cries, rushing toward me, trying to grab my arm. I step back, out of her reach. "You tricked us. That's not fair." "No," I say, cutting her off. "I didn't trick you. I revealed you. For the first time in your lives, you were completely honest with me.
You showed me exactly who you are. I reach into my jacket pocket and pull out a sealed envelope. As of this morning, my will has been rewritten. The trust has been dissolved. You can't do that, Marcus whispers. I snarl. I can burn it down. I point to the front door. My hand is steady.
My finger is like a loaded weapon. Dad, please, Marcus begs, tears forming in his eyes now. Tears for his lost yacht, not for me. I don't care, I say. The locks are being changed in an hour. Your credit cards have already been canceled. The cars in the driveway are leased under the company name. The repo trucks are en route. You wanted me dead? Well, congratulations, Elena screams, her face contorted. I'm not leaving, I roar, slamming my hand on the table so hard the silverware jumps. Sebastian steps forward. He is still in character, still imposing, still terrifying. He blocks Marcus physically, towering over him. I believe the gentleman asked you to leave, Sebastian says, his voice deep and menacing. Marcus looks at Sebastian, then at me. He sees the resolve in my eyes. He knows the game is over. He grabs Elena's arm. Come on, he mutters. Let's go. We'll get the best one you can find, I say. I watch them go. They don't look back. They stumble out the front door, stripping the house of their presence. I hear the engines of their cars start, the last time they will ever drive them. I watch my legacy drive away in vehicles they can no longer afford, heading toward a life they are utterly unprepared for. The heavy door slams shut. Silence returns to the dining room, but it isn't the heavy, suffocating silence of before. It is clean. It is empty. I am alone. That was a hell of a scene, Sebastian says softly, his accent slipping back to its natural, weary tone. He walks to the sideboard and pours himself a glass of the wine Elena left behind. Yes, I say. I feel tired. My bones ache. But my heart feels lighter than it has in years. I pick up my own glass. To the quiet, Sebastian says, raising his glass. To the truth, I reply. We drink. I am alone in a mansion that echoes. I have no heirs. I have no family. But as I look around the room, I realize I am not a victim. I am a father who finally did his job. I stop the rot. And tomorrow, I start over.